good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're listening from. My name is Eric, and this is the Five Head Podcast. Welcome, everyone, to episode 12 of the Five Head Podcast. No kings, but a lot of memes. And what did this all accomplish? So we're going to dive into those things and a few other things that's happened over the last week for this episode. And I just got to say, it's my favorite time of year. We are in the back half of October now. The kids are in school. Baseball's hitting the World Series. Hockey and basketball are back. In the NFL, you already know whether or not your team is worth the damn. And I'm a Dolphins fan, so our season's over. But the air is crisp. The leaves are turning colors. I love this time of year. And of course, entertainment politics is in full swing. I really didn't want to get into the No Kings rallies, and I'll explain why in a second. But it's the big thing that happened this weekend, so we're going to talk about it. But before we dive into all of this, let's get some usual business out of the way. If you're listening, please hit that like, that follow, that subscribe button. It costs you nothing, and it really helps the brother out. If it's your first time listening to the podcast, check out the other episodes on YouTube at Middleview Media and on Spotify and anywhere else you get your podcasts at the Five Head Podcast. Okay, so let's just jump right in here to the No Kings rallies that happened over the weekend. Millions of people across almost every single state in the U.S., and it was an awesome turnout. Aside from a few little things that seemed to have been a peaceful thing, and people just came out and let their voices be heard. And I support protests across the board. One of the best parts about this country is you have the absolute right to protest anything you want at any time that you want. And I support and champion that, whether I agree with the protest or not. And this is one of those protests that I don't agree or disagree with. And the reason why I didn't really want to talk about it is for that exact reason. When talking about Trump in any way or any capacity at all, or protests against Trump or what people have said in opposition to Trump, etc., you mostly deal with like two types of people who are listening, and they're completely opposite people. They're either people that are starting from the point of they love Trump, or they're starting from the point of they hate Trump. And so everything I say comes off as combating to their viewpoint, and that's not my intention. I don't love Trump and I don't hate Trump. I don't love that he's president. I don't hate that he's president. But more importantly than that, like I'm human. I have my own personal opinions and my preferences and all that stuff. But when I talk about things that are going on and I try to analyze what's going on and give my opinions on them, it really is specifically about that thing that's going on. It doesn't start with, I hate or love Trump, therefore this thing that's going on is going to be good or bad. Like I truly start from a vantage point of, what is the situation? What are the pros and cons of the situation? What does it mean? So when it comes to talking about these No Kings protests, you have two trains of thought when people are listening to you. They either want to hear this is a dumb libtard waste of time, or they want to hear this is a protest to save our democracy and end authoritarianism that Trump is trying to project onto the U.S. And to me, it's neither of those things. In my opinion, it was just we don't like Trump and we don't like that he's president rally. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think people are dumb libtards for expressing their opinions on Trump. But either way, these protests happen all across the U.S., like I said. And I got to say, watching these things is actually pretty impressive. And these things are perfect for the media and they're perfect for political campaigns because it draws everyone's attention to them. And they're entertaining. You know what I mean? You woke up on Saturday morning like, all right, let me pull up the news and see what's going on. Let's see how these protests are starting. Let's see how they're building up. And that's all they talk about all day. It's just like a marathon of entertainment. And at the end of the day, though, it's really is impressive to see millions and millions of people in one event like that. Now, I don't exactly know how people have time for those type of things. And I mean, it takes a commitment to do those types of things, right? I mean, I've never been to Times Square for New Year's Eve. But from what I'm told is like once you get close enough to a certain point where the festivities are, there's no bathrooms and there's no leaving. Like, so what do you have to prepare for stuff like that. So if you live in New York City and you're used to something like that, that's one thing. But if you're not used to those kind of crowds and beating for that long, I mean, that's got to be so difficult to do and stand there all day and keep going. So when you see these things pop up around the country, especially when they're kind of organized, meaning they've been like planned on for the last however long, it's really interesting to watch them come together. And I wanted to like take my camera with the podcast logo and going to DC because I live just outside of DC and ask questions and film people and just see what's going on the street level, because cameras are there all day, but the media is going to edit out and only show what they want to show. I just wanted to go hear what people were saying on the street, just literally as they're standing there for 3 hours. What are they talking about? Are there maybe some Trump supporters that are there as well? Are they getting along? Are they having discussions? Are they just ignoring each other? If you're at a No Kings rally and you're there protesting Trump and someone is there with a MAGA hat and their key falls out of their pocket, are you tapping them on the shoulder and being like, hey dude, your key fell out, here you go? Or are you F them, they're Trump support? I just want to see what the interaction is on the actual street level when the news cameras weren't around. But of course, I have kids and other responsibilities that I just never have time to go to things like this. But they are pretty cool. And I think one of these days, being that I live in DC, I want to go to one of these events just to see it in person, whether I agree with the protests or not. So just from an entertainment standpoint and just from a watching this play out on TV thing, it's really cool to see stuff like that. At the same time, I don't necessarily understand the point of the No Kings protest because we have no kings. And I'm not saying that in the rhetorical sense of we don't have kings. We've never had a king. We're a constitutional republic. There wasn't a king before the protest. There's not a king after the protest. And that's a lot of what the fighting is now online about the No Kings protests, that they're pointless because we don't have any kings. So it makes no sense. And while in a raw sense, I guess I agree with that, I do understand that the name of the protest, No Kings, is symbolizing kind of the authoritarian rule that Democrats believe Trump is trying to institute from the executive branch of the government, especially with the legislative branch essentially shut down. I mean, when you think about that, with the shutdown and half of Congress being an exodus, meaning Congress can't get anything done, the legislative branch is just kind of not there right now. Anyway, I digress. What I mean by I'm not understanding the point of the No Kings rally is not that because, of course, we don't actually have a king. I understand that. But there's a reason I say they should have just called it the We Hate That Trump is President rally, because aside from something for millions of people to do on a Saturday, which looked really cool to watch on TV, what did it actually accomplish? And this goes into something deeper that has bugged me for the last couple of years. It seems like we praise things that do not matter. We consider real leadership the way someone sounds when they give a speech. When the political party you don't like does something in Congress, for example, and then your representative in Congress says, here's my official statement on that, and then you cheer that. Do you ever think what is a statement? That statement does nothing. Take action. Do you get what I mean? And I feel like that's more on the Democrat side these last couple of years, simply because Trump is not a profound speaker. He's not politically correct. He doesn't care about coming off as classy or professional. And so because of that, the counter to that is for everyone on the Democrat side to be over the top on classiness and the way they say something and try to make everything sound so profound and like it's a poem, when they type a statement or something, that it comes off as just not fake, but performative. And it's just, that doesn't matter. Hakeem Jeffries gave a speech when he first lost the Speaker of the House to Mike Johnson. And then everyone online was like, did you hear that speech? That is the leader that we need. That is leadership. But how great his speech was after losing the Speaker of the House race. That's what we're celebrating. That's what we're clapping for. How great a losing speech is. And back in 2020, Donald Trump said the election was stolen from him. He was trying to tell GOP members in Congress to not certify the election. There was obviously a riot on the Capitol building that delayed the election, all this stuff, right? And I feel like Democrats were so big on this message that any sort of questioning an election result at all is an actual threat to our constitutional republic, to democracy, to the rule of law. Just even thinking to yourself that any result to any election may not be on the up and up makes you a threat to the country. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because they sold that message so hard that when Trump won in 2024, where he just happened to win every single swing state that he lost in 2020, he happened to win in states where Democrat governors won and state legislators went or remained blue, but yet Trump happened to win that state in the general election, and Democrats couldn't question it because it would go against everything they just said for the last 4 years, that you can't question the election. And Kamala Harris, the vice president at the time, had to be the one in Congress to certify her loss to Donald Trump in the election. And it was the quickest certification we've ever seen. No objections, certify, 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 Trump is president. They really wanted so hard to show how much they don't question elections that they refused to question the election results in a way that is legally written into the entire election process through the certification process and the objections that people are allowed to have in Congress. Like, those are actual rules to our elections. Congress is allowed to object or to question the result of an election. There's an actual process for that. But they didn't even do that. And then everyone who hates Trump cheered on, like, look how Kamala Harris gracefully certified her own election loss. That is what real leadership is. As if how well you certify your own loss actually accomplished anything, when the real accomplishment would be, for Democrats, Donald Trump not having won the 2024 election. And there's a number of things that I've seen like this, mainly from the Democrat side over the last few years. Trump does something, or congressional Republicans do something the Democrats don't like. So they put out like an official statement in like a tweet or something. And it's got a letterhead on it, and it's got a different color background, and it's in a pretty font, and it uses all these big words, perfect grammar. And they're like, here's my statement against this. And millions of likes, millions of shares. This is real leadership. Putting out a statement is real leadership. And my point in bringing all that up is, at what point does sounding professional not matter? At what point does remaining classy not matter? And like all of these resolutions in the House and Senate to condemn something, what does that actually do? Nothing. Like, for the people who voted for Trump, the reason why they're happy with Trump is because he ran on mass deportations, and he's implementing mass deportations. He ran on raising tariffs for countries that he believes are screwing us over with trade deals. And he's got tariffs on these countries that are screwing us over in trade deals. And he doesn't care if the tariffs cause him price hikes. He ran on reduction in force in the federal government, and he is reducing the force. He ran on bashing the media. He continues to bash the media. He literally ran on ending political correctness, saying what he wants and how he truly feels about stuff. And he's doing that. He's doing what the people who voted for him to do. And there's kind of a disconnect here, because I'm seeing a lot of people put out tweets saying whether or not you voted for him to do something doesn't make it legal. Correct. It doesn't make it legal. But when you see tweets of people that are like, I voted for this, they're not saying that he should be doing things that are illegal. They're not saying he should become a king or authoritarian or dictator. They're saying that he should take all the powers that he can through executive order to do the things that he said he was going to do and let the courts work it out. What GOP voters are unhappy with right now is Congress, believe it or not. The GOP voters know that Trump has about 2 years. He needs a GOP Congress to start solidifying the things he's doing via EO by passing legislation on it. Because EOs, as we know, can be blocked by courts. And if they're not blocked by the courts and they're fully implemented, the next president can reverse all those EOs. So governing by EO is short-term governance. Anyways, I keep digressing here, but my point is, whether you like Trump or not, he's trying to do everything that he campaigned on doing. Now, I get this idea that if you don't like Trump, then of course everything he's doing must be illegal and unconstitutional, all other stuff. But it's not. Writing an EO is not unconstitutional. Executive action, executive orders aren't just made up on the spot. Presidents can't do whatever they want with an executive order. The authority to write executive actions and implement executive orders comes from legislation in Congress. When they pass something like an Environmental Protection Act of some sort, in that act are all the authorities and how it's executed and how the executive branch will enforce all the actions of that legislation. And in all of that is what powers the president has through executive order to make sure the enforcement of that piece of legislation is carried out. And that's where presidents are drawing their EOs from. So when any president writes an EO and the people who don't like that president are like, that's unconstitutional. It's not unconstitutional to write an EO. What a president or a president's administration is doing when they write the EOs is taking the legislation around the subject that they want to write an EO on, interpreting it how they interpret it to draw the EO off of, and then implementing the EO. And then someone challenges that, so it goes to court. And that's where the courts work out whether or not what they're trying to do by EO fits the legislation that they're guided by. So writing an EO to do something is not in itself illegal. The action that the EO is saying to do is not in itself illegal either. And even when the EO goes to court and the court shoot it down and then the administration appeals, even if it goes up to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court shuts it down, that doesn't mean from an intention standpoint, the president was trying to do something illegal. It just means the administration was interpreting a piece of legislation and the powers that they get from that legislation and tried to implement action based on the powers that they believe they had from that legislation incorrectly. So you didn't break the law by trying to exercise the powers of the executive branch. You just didn't get that one right. So you have to go back now and make sure that you are passing EOs drawn off the power given to you by that piece of legislation that was signed. And my only point in saying all that is just because you don't like a president doesn't mean every EO that they write is somehow unconstitutional or breaking the law. But my overall point is Trump is doing what the voters asked him to do. Use every legal avenue you have to get rid of people who are here illegally, to end the conflicts in the Middle East, to end the conflicts between Ukraine and Russia, regardless of how you do that, to end the unfair trade deals we have with other countries in the world, to reduce the government. There's too many agencies, there's too many organizations, there's too many employees that are just simply not needed in order to do what they believe the government's pure mission should be. Whether or not you agree with that, that's what his voters want him to do, and that's what he's doing. And I feel like if you're a Democrat voter, you've got to be furious because not only is Trump doing things that you just don't agree with, but it seems like for the last couple of years, the only thing Democrats focus on is saying the right things or giving a really good speech or going on the media and using all the buzzwords. And that's why I say, like, what did this No Kings rally actually accomplish? It is so cool to see. And like I said, I believe everyone has a right to protest anything they want, whenever they want, whether I agree or disagree with it. And I would fight for your right to do that. From a PR perspective, it accomplished stuff, right? Largest mass protest in U.S. history. There's a lot of cool pictures from it. It'll be a big staple of the overall Trump era as the history books repeat it, 20, 30, 50 years from now. So if the goal is just to make a statement was made. But at the end of the day, what did the No Kings rally actually accomplish? When you woke up this morning, what was different? Is Trump still president? Is the government still closed? Does the GOP still control the House and Senate and the White House? Is that rep from Arizona, who would be the last vote to get the Epstein files released, has she been sworn in yet? Is healthcare free for everybody? Have deportations stopped? What was actually accomplished by the rallies other than it was really cool and it gives us all something to talk about for the next week? And at what point are you done talking about it? At what point do you look at candidates who are running for office and say, I don't want to hear you talk about solidifying gay marriage because you've been running on that for the last 20 years. I don't want to hear you campaign on abortion rights because you've been talking about abortion rights for the last 50 years. Either you're going to solidify them on the federal level or you're not. At what point do the perfectly written speeches not matter? Using all the buzzwords don't matter? Putting out a profound tweet that sounds very professional and leadership-like, at what point does all of that not matter anymore? Because I'll tell you when that didn't matter for the GOP, political correctness, perfect grammar. In 2016, when Donald Trump came on the scene, Republican voters decided, we don't care about great speeches. We don't care about rhetorical campaign promises and speaking in platitudes. We don't want to hear you pander to us, tell us things we want to hear. We no longer care what you say or how it sounds. We just want you to do what we're voting for you to do. I'm just saying it baffles me. Like I mentioned before, like Hakeem Jeffries gives this speech, basically his concession speech. And it was just lauded as like one of the greatest speeches. And this just shows you what great leadership of what? He didn't win. Isn't that more important than how great the speech is? Like Hakeem Jeffries filibustered for over 24 hours straight. I don't know how the hell the dude did it. He had to have been wearing a diaper or something. There's no way I couldn't do it. I couldn't stand up and filibuster and actually speak for 24 hours. It was an awesome thing to see someone do that. But at the end of the day, he'll go down in history right now for the longest filibuster in history. And it's awesome, but it didn't actually accomplish anything. But the amount of praise and cheers from Democrats for him doing that, you would have thought he just won the presidency, or you would have thought he just ended abortion bans or got free healthcare for everyone. It was like the greatest thing when really it didn't mean anything. So I don't know. I'm just saying, when do we stop praising things that actually don't matter? If you hate Trump and you hate everything he's doing right now, the No Kings rallies didn't change any of that. It was cool to watch. It's really cool to get millions of people to come together to do something. That's great and all, but it doesn't change anything. And it doesn't really send a real message. It's not like only 5 million people voted for Democrats in the last general election, but now there's 7 million who showed up to oppose Trump. So they gained 2 million votes. I mean, there were 70 something million people who voted for Democrats. So of course, when you run these massive protests in these major cities that are mostly Democrat, you're going to get great turnout. Yes, there are 7 million people in the country who don't like Trump. There are 75, 77 million people who voted against him in the last election. And there'll be somewhere between 70 and 75 million people who vote for the Democrat in the next election. Like if the protest was 150 million people strong, it would be like, holy crap, that's something to really pay attention to, because that's almost the entire voting base, right? So it was a statement. Don't get me wrong on that. It was planned. It was coordinated. People were making plans to go. They made a commitment to show up. 7 million people, the largest mass protest in U.S. history. At the end of the day, nothing has changed. You woke up today and everything is still the same as it was before those protests. So while it was cool, someone tell me what it actually accomplished. Now, aside from No King's protests not actually accomplishing anything, we have other stuff going on this week that really doesn't accomplish anything either. And that is the apparent meme wars that we have between Donald Trump and literally everyone who doesn't like Donald Trump. Now, when it comes to memeing in a way of making fun, the people who don't like Donald Trump have been doing this since 2016. It seems like Donald Trump has just figured out how to create a meme, especially video memes. Thanks to AI, and I'm sure people on this staff that are under 80 years old, he's figured out how to put together triggering video memes and blast them all over the internet. The latest one, of course, is one that he put out at the end of the day after the No Kings rallies, and it shows him sitting in a fighter jet wearing a crown, and the fighter jet is flying through the air and dropping piles of poop onto people at the No Kings rally protests. And the first pile of poop lands directly on Harry Sisson in this meme video. And if you don't know who Harry Sisson is, he's a social media influencer, very heavily political on the Democrat side. And it's driving people nuts on both sides. People who support Trump think it's just the funny and coolest thing in the world. Haha, the libs deserve it. That's what they've done to him for the last 10 years. They can eat it. And of course, to the left, everything is about symbolism. So of course, this symbolizes him pooping all over America because he doesn't care and he wants to take over as dictator. And he's literally telling you he wants to do that by showing himself as a king in a fighter jet pooping on New York City. Also, you know, when you learn something new, you kind of do it over and over. Trump, or at least someone on his PR team, has gone crazy over the last week and a half, learning how to make these AI videos. As he keeps making videos of Hakeem Jeffries and other members of the Democrat Congress wearing sombreros with like a Spanish mariachi band behind them, just to trigger and make fun and tick people off. And on one hand, I absolutely agree that this is not something you would expect a president to do. And if you're going to have a PR staff that's on social media for you, maybe those accounts should be separate. Maybe only the president, his or herself, should be tweeting from the official, X account of the actual president. And then they should have a PR team or staff account that could tweet all these funny videos out, because it is immature. It is lacking class and the type of professionalism you would expect out of the office of the presidency. However, at the same time, it's not the end of the world. It's a meme. He's clearly doing it to trigger people, because there was just a No Kings rally that was really just a "We hate you, President Trump" rally. So he's obviously doing it to trigger people. Now we've got fights all day long on social media of whether or not it's becoming of a president to post a meme like that. And again, it doesn't matter. It's a meme. Trump has spent the last 9 years now with everyone who didn't vote for him absolutely hating him. They meme against him. They wish death on him. They wish death on his family members. They've attacked him and insulted him in so many ways. They went after him and tried to put him in jail. And he's in his last term of presidency. So yes, like a child, he's getting his revenge. And he's going to continue the insults. He's going to continue the memes. He's going to continue doing what he can to trigger the people that hate him, because he has nothing to lose in that sense. Right? It's not illegal or against the law or something that's going to get him thrown in jail for insulting you. So that's what he's doing. Approval ratings don't matter to him right now. As we get closer to 2028, depending on where his standing is with the voters, you'll start to see GOP members who are going to be running for president start to kind of go against Trump in order to make sure they're not painting themselves in the same light as Trump. Or if Trump's approval ratings between now and election season in 2028, depending on what happens during that time, if his approval ratings are through the roof, then the next GOP candidates are all going to run as a continuation of Trump. So really, his approval ratings don't matter to him, and they don't matter to the party overall. But I never understood why we get so worked up over things like this that just don't matter. And it's not just one way. The same people right now who are laughing because this meme is triggering the libs are the first ones to complain when there's a meme about them or about Trump. And it's like, why? First of all, like I said, it does not matter. But second of all, can't we just laugh at something that's funny? Not everything is symbolism for some negative thing. He didn't put out this meme to show that he doesn't care about America. He's taken over. He put out a meme to show himself pooping on the people who have pooped on him for the last 10 years. That's it. He was trying to be funny. Unprofessional? Yes. Funny? Also yes. And I remember back in 2016 and when he was running again in 2020, there were a lot of Trump supporters that would say they support him on policy and what he's trying to do. They wish he would tone it down with insults. They wish he'd be a little more professional. They wish he'd be a little more classy. But now, in his last term, they don't care. And you know what? With this meme and the first pile of poop landing on Harry Sisson, that's just drove Harry Sisson's views and likes and shares through the roof, just like in the last day and a half. I wish Trump would make a video of him flying a fighter jet and pooping on me. Because then I'd probably have 1 million followers and 1 million listeners to the podcast. But anyway, that's why I was titling this episode like No Kings or Memes Allowed, apparently, because everyone's losing their crap over this stuff. If you like Trump, sometimes you're going to see a meme where Trump is depicted as a fat pig with big ankles and orange skin. Just laugh at it because it's funny. If you hate Trump, sometimes you're going to see a meme of Trump in a king hat because he thinks it triggers you. Just laugh at it. Don't let it bother you. And guess what? None of it means anything. Nothing changes at all. Your praise, your gratitude, your anger should go to the things that actually do matter. But I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just the weird one. Like, I don't know why, that stuff just does not bother me. I don't get worked up in a positive or negative way when I see stupid stuff like that. If it's funny, I laugh and then I go on. It's never a deeper meaning to me or something like that. It's just immature and funny. And it can be both immature and funny at the same time. Meanwhile, it looks like the government's going to be shut down at least another week as Mike Johnson is keeping the House in recess. It looks like that representative from Arizona is not going to get sworn in anytime soon, right? So the real stuff that matters is still happening. So it doesn't matter how many memes are put out. It doesn't matter how many mass and very entertaining protests go on around the country. The things that do matter still matter. But I think the reason why things that don't matter continue to happen is because that's where we keep putting our focus and attention. I really wish we can just get past this massive divide that polarizes everything into something it's not, that gets us all arguing and focusing on things that actually don't matter. So that's the episode for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, concerns, anything you want to debate, please put it in the comments and I will address it on the next episode. Or you can email me at eric.middleviewmedia@gmail.com. Talk to you guys next week. Bye.